Everyone, welcome to the Morning Grind presented by rotogrinders.com. I'm your host, Stevie TPFL. It's an April 13th. It's a Wednesday, and we got baseball in the afternoon, and we got baseball at night. So with this massive slate, I got one of the best in the business joining me today, and that is Derek Farnsworth, Notorious. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing well. I'm glad to be on for the baseball podcast. Had a good time with you doing NBA. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited that NBA is coming to an end, and I'm sure you are too. But I'm so excited that baseball is in full swing here and get this podcast going daily now. And I'm sure you'll be joining me throughout the year here.
Yeah, and on the NBA note, Reggie Jackson got scratched at like 5 or 7:01 tonight. So yeah, I think I'm done with NBA until the playoffs, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners will be as well.
Yeah, it sounded like that was brutal for a lot of people on Twitter. So yeah, not a high scoring night in baseball as well on Tuesday night. So it's one of those interesting days, and that's why we're back at it here for the Wednesday morning podcast, and we're talking some baseball. So let's look at this 3-game slate real quick. The early slate, the afternoon slate, however you want to put it. We got Miami at New York Mets, playing the Mets for the final game, I think, of this series. Logan Verrett against Adam Conley. Either one of these pitchers stand out to you here?
I don't mind either guy. Neither one has a ton of major league experience, but I think if I had to choose one, I'd probably give the edge to the home guy. He pitched pretty well last season. I think he had 4 starts under his belt, and he put up a 3.59 ERA with a decent K rate. So I don't think any of the games last year, but the beginning of the season, I think they'll extend his innings a little bit.
Yeah, it's this morning early slate is pretty ugly as far as pitching goes. Just in general, there's 6 guys. Walker is probably going to be extremely popular in that Texas-Seattle game. So I don't mind going different with tournament guys. And the Mets offense really hasn't shown a lot this year. Adam Conley, a guy that I think he could pitch well enough in this game to be okay, but both sides of this, I think it's just a toss-up. So that leads us to liking some of these bats, I'm sure. First guy that stands out to me, as always, is Stanton. What's your thoughts on the monster bat here?
Yeah, I always like him. It's not against a lefty, but it doesn't really matter when it comes to Stanton. Had a 374 weighted on base average against righties last year and a 288 ISO. So you can't really go wrong there. Not the best hitter's park, but they have a decent team total. And, you always got to like Stanton.
Yeah, another guy, just at the top of the order here, D. Gordon. He's pretty much started the season where he left off last year. All he's doing is hitting and running when he gets on base. So he's always a guy you got to look at for cash games.
Yeah, definitely. His price is getting up there. 3,900 on FanDuel, 49 on DraftKings. But, you got to like him. He's always looking to steal every time he gets on, and he puts a lot of pressure on opposing pitchers.
Anything else you like here from the Marlins side, the visiting team?
You can look at Justin Bour or Bauer, however you say it. He has some nice power against righties. And, just one note, I don't watch a ton of baseball right now, so I'm going to pronounce a lot of names wrong. So just yell at me, and we'll be fine.
Hey, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah.
That's okay on this podcast. We'll allow it. We're recording late at night, first thing in the morning. So, we don't even have our coffee in us yet. So it's allowed on this podcast. People are going to get used to that. So looking at the Mets side of things here, Adam Conley, a lefty, one guy that instantly stands out to me throughout his career. David Wright has hit left-handed pitching well, and not a household name anymore, but 4 good games in a row coming into this matchup with this lefty.
Yeah, definitely got to like him. Just crushed lefties throughout his career, and really good price across the industry. I think he'll probably be the most popular play if you're just playing the early slate. And I like him for both cash and tournaments.
Yep, definitely a guy that I like here. Cespedes, another guy, gets a lefty-righty matchup. What's your thoughts on Cespedes here?
Yeah, for whatever reason, his numbers were really down against lefties last year, but historically he's hit them pretty well. And we always like the lefty-righty matchup. Looking at Conley splits, he hasn't given up a ton of great power to righties, but did give up 6 home runs in limited starts last year. So, I like Cespedes. I think you can look at Neil Walker for a cheap value bat, especially if he's batting 5th.
Yeah, I like that. Any other Mets stand out to you here? Maybe Travis d'Arnaud if he's catching.
Yeah, if he's in the lineup, definitely like him. He's been batting pretty low in the lineup this year, but if he gets up in that 6 or 7 hole, I definitely like him.
All right, Angels at Oakland. Matt Schumacher against Eric Surkramp here. Neither one of these pitchers really stand out to me. Shoemaker is a guy that I like to target. I pick on him quite a bit. It usually pays off. This isn't a great ballpark, but I still think that you could pick on him a little bit here. Surkamp didn't look terrible in that first start against Seattle. Not a lot of strikeouts, but didn't allow a lot of hits. Interesting options here on the hill, but I don't like either one of them.
Yeah, I don't like either one of them either. Surkamp, low strikeout rate. Schumacher, I mean, he's shown some upside, but he really struggled with consistency last year. And yeah, I'm just not a fan of either of these guys. This game has the highest over-under of the 3 games in the early slate.
So let's target some of these bats here. Josh Reddick, 3,200 outfielder. Looks like he's in a good spot at home here, and the type of power that can definitely hit it out at O.co.
Yeah, I always love Reddick. He's one of the guys that always goes under-owned a little bit compared to, the type of upside that he offers and his respective price point. So I like him. I like Chris Coghlan a little bit if he's batting up near the top of the order. And then Stephen Vogt, always in play against the righty.
Yeah, and one thing to note about Vogt that's always a good thing to know is Fegley started the game on Tuesday, so Vogt should be back in the lineup after a day off, back in there and ready to get things done. Now, looking at the Angels, the offensive looks weak here for the Angels to start the season outside of Pujols and Trout. Is there anybody else that you like here?
Yeah, I mean, I have a little lineup chart in front of me here, and their boxes are all just red, meaning they're not very good against left-handed pitching. Other than Mike Trout, he has a 4.15 WOBA against them, so I don't mind him. But other than that, I'm just fading the Angels, even though they do have a pretty high team total.
Yeah, I think in a tournament, I don't know if I'd necessarily recommend playing cash on a 3-game slate. So you're going to fire some tournament bullets in there. The Angels should be an under-owned stack, and you just have to think eventually this offense is going to have one of these games where they get going. So I don't mind the Angels stack as a low-owned tournament option, but that's pretty much all they are. So you got to take it for what it is.
Yeah, I got a question for you. Do you play the all-day slates?
I don't. I think if you're going to play them, this is the time of the year to play them because you can project lineups pretty good, but I usually don't play them.
Yeah, I don't either. I've been wanting to. Like you said, it's a good time, especially for tournaments, because you can project the lineups, and there's going to be a lot of dead lineups with people out of the lineup, in some of the night games. So I'm definitely going to look into it a little bit more. But, yeah, I haven't been playing them either.
All right. Texas at Seattle, Walker against Griffin in this matchup. Like I mentioned, Walker probably going to be one of the highest owned pitchers on the slate. He definitely presents the highest upside on the slate if we're looking at strikeout numbers and things along those lines. What's your thoughts on Walker and Griffin here?
Yeah, he's going to be the chalk Walker, that is, but for good reason. I mean, he's got a high strikeout rate, and he really improved his command last year. He'd always struggled with walks throughout the first few seasons, but he brought that down to 5.5% last year. Nice Sierra of 3.7, and if he can keep it in the park, he'll be all right. He does give up a lot of home runs, which could make some interesting Rangers GPP plays. But yeah, Walker's my favorite pitcher in this slate.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree there just because the slate's so limited. Let's be different with some bats. Griffin, a guy that, right-handed pitcher, and this is a really good matchup for the Seattle bats that we like so much. Cano, Seager, Nelson Cruz is a guy that we typically target against lefties, but he can hit righties as well. And the $4,400 price tag, I think, is going to have him under-owned. What's your thoughts on these Seattle bats here?
Yeah, I do like Cruz. I do prefer the left-handers a little bit, like you mentioned. Cano and Seager are both nice power against righties. You can look at Aoki batting leadoff. Adam Lynch should be batting fifth. I always like him against righties. And then, for some value plays, I like Seth Smith batting sixth as well.
Yeah, Seth Smith's the guy that I rostered a ton last year. I loved him in the 2-hole when he faced righties last year. So pretty interesting. Now, if we're looking at Walker, he's definitely going to be the chalk. So game theory tells you, if you're playing this 3-game slate, why not throw some bats against him? to differentiate yourself here. And Prince Fielder is instantly a guy that stands out to me.
Yeah, so Walker has given up 13 home runs to lefties and 13 home runs to righties since the start of last season. So definitely a guy that you can take out of the park. Fielder's, still got some power, not as much power as he used to, but I definitely like him, as well as Mitch Moreland.
Yep, Mitch Moreland, always a guy. Odor is, I think, a guy that probably is going to be a guy a lot of people look at. He's just one of those guys where, if you want to pivot off of Cano, if you're taking some bats against Walker, pivot off the chalk and play some of these under-owned guys.
Yeah, what are your thoughts about this rookie? I don't know how to say his name. Nomar Mazara?
I don't think a lot of people know a lot about him, but from what I've heard and from what I've read, the guy knows how to hit the baseball. So at 2,700, I think he's going to be pretty popular here in this game.
Yeah, I do too. He should be batting in the 2-hole. Good matchup against a righty. I think it's a good way to differentiate your lineup, taking some of these Rangers bats, just because Walker's going to be so popular.
Which I love, man. I love being different, and that's the reason I took Padres on Tuesday, and it didn't work out for me. But Charlie Morton 1, Stevie 0. I'll get him back here throughout the season.
I was excited about that game. I had a total of 8.5 when the line first came out. Eventually came down to 7.5. But I had a little bit of exposure to both of those offenses, and it didn't work out too well for me either.
Yep, that's why we're back at it here on Wednesday. Stuff happens sometimes, and you just move on. So let's look at this late slate. It is a massive late slate. It's just one of these late slates where if you're a tournament player, you absolutely love it. Cash players, you see a lot of different ownerships on slates like this. So Notorious, I'm sure you like it as well here, being a cash guy.
Yeah, I always like the bigger slates, and that just gives you more options. Feels like you got a little bit more of an edge if you do enough research.
Well, that's what we're here to help people with here in the morning grind, is the research part. Shane Green, Ryan Vogel, Dong or Song? Which one are we going to get today?
He's pitching at home. I'll go with Song.
All right. Well, he still has to pitch against one of the best offenses in baseball, and that's the Detroit Tigers. Shane Green here. Any thoughts on either one of these guys?
So I'm seeing the line in front of me, and I don't know if it's right. It's saying Pittsburgh minus 160 with a 7.5 over/under.
Yeah, I will definitely take the over on that.
That just seems a little weird. It seems like they're expecting Vogelsong to pitch well.
I wouldn't be shocked. He's had some good games. He's probably one of those guys where he's really up and down throughout the season. So I wouldn't be shocked, but I want some exposure to these bats. Vogelsong, a guy, 383 WOBA against lefties last year, almost a 33% hard contact rate. So, looking at the lineup, you're instantly going to be drawn to a guy like Victor Martinez at 2,800 in the catcher eligibility here on FanDuel.
Yeah, so I don't think he's going to be in the lineup, though, right? This game.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That's a good point. So now we're looking at a lineup, maybe Anthony Ghosts.
Maybe Vogelsong is an interesting play. He's pretty good against righties, and we know the righties lineup's just full of, or the Tigers lineup's full of right-handed bats.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Didn't they? They were playing in Detroit. That's why it threw me off.
Yeah, for whatever reason, they just swapped back to.
Yeah, they do those 2-2 splits, so I'm guessing they'll probably play on Thursday as well. But all right, so that kind of throws me off a little bit, but I still think Vogelsong's a guy that I'm going to pick on. He's just not. And what's really crazy is he's been in the league here for a few years now. Don't know exactly how many years, but he's never faced any of these Detroit bats.
Yeah, you're a BVP guy, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like to look at it. I don't know how much I factor it into my decision making, but I definitely look at it.
Team BVP is working out pretty good this year. We've had a lot of home runs go our way, but it is what it is. If you want to factor it in, don't. It's one of those things where everybody has their own pattern and research. So if you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. I'm not going to force it or be like, oh, you're going to suck because you're not looking at BVP. But one thing that we do want to note here, Shane Green, 425 WOBA, 35% hard contact rate to lefties last year in 40 innings, and his ERA was around 8.55, and the xFIP wasn't much better at 5.07. So think you're going to want to target guys like Polanco, Jaso, some of these lefties. Maybe if Matt Joyce is in the 2 spot, him as well.
Yeah, I always love targeting Jaso when he bats lead off. Just great numbers against right-handed pitchers. Nice on base percentage, and he's always cheap. So he's always one of my favorite plays. Like you mentioned, Matt Joyce could be good. Polanco could be good, and I don't think you have to shy away from the right-handed bats either.
No, yeah, definitely not going. Green's not one of those guys going to overpower righties. Hard contact rate is much lower against righties, but guys like McCutchen and Marte, guys you can pretty much target against any type of pitcher. So I definitely agree with you there. But if I had to pick one guy at this lineup, it's going to be Polanco. He's off to a really hot start.
Yeah, I do prefer him batting leadoff, but yeah, I don't mind him in the 6 hole either.
Yeah, I'm going to have some guys on in front of him, get some RBIs. Cheap production there. San Diego at Philadelphia, a game that it sounds like both of us are on here. Jared Eckhoff against Colin Ray in this game. And Eckhoff's a guy that's really interesting to me because a lot of the numbers and stuff suggest that he's actually going to pitch better than what he pitched last year. And for that instance, I kind of like him here in this matchup. He's really good against righties. If we're looking at San Diego's bats, Kemp, Myers, a lot of the power on the right side. What do you think of him here?
Yeah, so when I did my first, analysis of the games on Tuesday, I kind of liked Erlin a little bit, and I kind of liked Charlie Morton a little bit, but I ended up going away from him, and I was kind of bummed about that. So I think you can look at Eichhoff at home. He's a small favorite. The total is kind of high, but like you mentioned, his ERA was a lot higher than some of his advanced pitching stats last season. So I think you can definitely look at him.
Yeah, 30 innings pitched last year, only a 203 WOBA against righties, so should be able to neutralize the power in Kemp and Myers if Myers is in the lineup. It's interesting because you got guys like Norris and Melvin Upton in that lineup. The strikeouts are there. He's not a big strikeout guy, but the strikeouts are definitely there for him. So I think this is a matchup at 6,600. I think he's going to be a pretty popular tournament play.
Yeah, I could see that.
Colin Ray, on the other hand, a guy that, doesn't grade out too good, but he doesn't grade out that bad as well. Interesting against lefties, not as good against righties here. Looking at this lineup, probably going to face more lefties than righties. So I think Colin Ray is a tournament option as well at 5K.
Yeah, his command's not as great as I'd like it to be. He walked over 10% of the batters that he faced last season, giving up a 24% line drive rate. But yeah, I mean, definitely for tournaments, both of these offenses near the bottom of the National League. So I definitely think you can give both these guys a look.
All right, I'm not on a lot of these San Diego bats, which I think makes him an interesting play. But if there was one guy to take here, it's John Jay and Corey Spangenberg.
Yep, I like both those guys at the top of the lineup. Citizens Bank Park, if you look at the run production over the last few years, it's been down a little bit, but I think that has more to do with, the offense of the Phillies than it does with the actual ballpark. It's still a pretty friendly ballpark for hitters, so I think you can look to Jay and Spangenberg.
All right, so what's your thoughts here on the Philly bats that you just said that you don't like any of this off? No, I'm just kidding. Who do you like here for Philly?
I always like Maikel Franco, and for whatever reason, I have a soft spot in my heart for Cesar Hernandez.
I like both those guys, and I think we got to be crazy not to point out Herrera batting in the 3 spot, 2,600. And, every time I watch this guy hit, he's just so patient at the plate. He does a lot at the plate. He works deep into counts. So I like Herrera in this 3 spot at 2,600. Doesn't present a necessarily a lot of upside, but, a guy that can get on base.
Yeah, I think he's a little underpriced. Definitely think you can look to him. It should be a nice cash game option, I think.
Atlanta at Washington, Steven Strasburg against Matt Weisler. This is an interesting matchup. We've seen Max get hit around a little bit, and then we've seen Gio pitch really well against the Braves on Tuesday. What's your thoughts here on Steven Strasburg?
So who's the pitcher that tilts you the most in baseball?
Probably Matt Harvey.
Yeah, mine's Strasburg by a wide margin. I don't know if he's ever pitched well for me, and he has a ton of great starts under his belt, so I don't know what it is, but I just can't get the guy right.
So is that saying, all right, so I need to know now, are you playing him so I know if I need to fade him or not?
So yeah, I'll play him. So just a warning to everyone out there that think about taking him.
Active warning: Steven Strasburg, notorious can't get him right. So one thing that is interesting here is the other side of the ball. Weisler is a guy that was highly prospect, big prospect coming in, one of the Braves' top prospects. What are your thoughts on him here? It doesn't look like he's been able to get the major league level figured out.
Yeah, not great numbers at the major league level, like you mentioned. 4.92 Sierra, strikeout rate barely over 15%. And anytime we see a walk to or a strikeout to walk ratio less than 2, I get a little bit worried.
Yeah, I agree. So I think we can load up on some of these home bats here. Bryce Harper, Daniel Murphy. I think both of those guys are going to be extremely highly owned here in this slate.
Yeah, I agree. So what are your thoughts on Michael Taylor? He's been a popular value play here in the early going. He hasn't really had many good games. He had a good game Monday night, I guess, if you're listening to podcasts on Wednesday. So what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he we talked about it a little bit. I try to pivot off him as much as I can. I actually had him in that game on Monday where he scored 21 fantasy points, but didn't have him any on Tuesday. Batting leadoff at 2,400 with an offense behind you that can score runs. This is definitely a matchup that I think you can target him. But on the other hand, I'm not against fading a guy like him that doesn't present a lot of upside. But if you're playing him in cash, you don't really need a lot of upside. He can steal a couple bases, and that always helps you out.
Yeah, I always like guys with speed. He just needs to get on base, and that's kind of been a problem for him in the early going.
All right, so looking at the other side, is there anybody that you want to target against Steven Strasburg?
I don't think so. He's got an elite strikeout rate. Doesn't walk a lot of batters. This Braves offense really inept of any power outside of Freddie Freeman. So I'm probably just going to fade them altogether.
All right, I want to mention one thing about Freddie Freeman: 12 for 31 with 3 home runs and a 387 batting average against Steven Strasburg in his career. It's a pretty good sample size here for BVP. So 387, average, a 1.203 OPS. Looks like Freeman's hitting pretty hard. So if you're wanting a tournament play that nobody's going to be on, because probably a lot of people are going to be on Strasburg, I like Freeman at 3,100. And, Garcia was a guy that I was really high on Tuesday. Didn't get the job done for me on Tuesday, but third base is a position where if I can get a 4-hitter at 2,200, I'm always interested in tournaments. So I'm going right back to the well. 2-hit game. Even though he didn't show a lot of power there, 2-hit games are something that you want out of the $2,200 player.
Yeah, minimum price, batting cleanup. Can't argue with that too much.
Yeah, the matchup against Strasburg is always something you want to be, hesitant with. But I think that it's an interesting matchup. So New York Yankees at Rogers Center against the Blue Jays here. J.A. Happ at home against Michael Pineda. I have a rule. I don't like targeting pitchers at Coors or Rogers Center. What's your thoughts on these pitchers here?
Yep, I agree with you. This is basically the Coors Field of the American League, so avoiding both of these guys.
All right, J.A. Happ. Not necessarily one of those things where you think, lefty versus righty struggles, but, looking at his numbers, not too bad against righties, except for one thing, his hard contact rate over 30%. That's instantly something that stands out to me anytime I see it, and the same goes over lefty bats. So J.A. Happ, when he gets hit, he gives up a lot of hard contact.
Yeah, for every reason, the advanced pitching stats minus the hard contact rate are kind of in his favor. I mean, he's given up 310 or less weighted on base average to hitters from both sides of the plate, and but he does have 15 home runs against righties. So if you're looking at anyone from the Yankees, I think you got to look hitters on the right side of the plate.
All right, so let's talk the visiting Yankees here. Is there anybody that stands out to you on that right side of the plate?
Old man A-Rod, maybe a little bit. I think Aaron Hicks is interesting if he ends up batting, somewhere at the top of the order. He's only 2,500, and he's shown some nice power against righties last year when he was with the Twins.
Yeah, I like Hicks a lot, especially up towards the top of the order. So what's your thoughts here on Sterling Castro? It looks like he's a completely different guy in this Yankees uniform than Cubs. Is it a joke? Is he trying to play magic with us, or is he actually going to be a better player this year?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes a new environment can, really light a fire under a guy, and hopefully that's the case with Castro. He's a guy that I've always kind of liked since he started playing. So hopefully that it's something that's going to, show itself out through the season. But I don't like targeting the hitters that are way down in the lineup. So I mean, if he's batting eighth again, I'll probably pass on him. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm the same way. If he's down the order, the one thing that does stand out to me, he's been able to produce in the bottom of the order. So that's one thing that kind of stands out to me. The ballpark's in his favor. If he's talked about a lot during the day, I'll probably move off of him. But if he's not talked about a lot and he's in that 8 hole and I expect him to be low owned, I might take a couple shots on him in the tournament. Now, looking at the Blue Jays, we talked about this a little bit yesterday with Jeff Collins. Donaldson doesn't just hit lefties; he hits righties really well, and it's overlooked a lot. Donaldson, always a guy that I like to target here for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, I agree. I just have a problem targeting hitters against Michael Pineda. He's been really good since coming back from his injury, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, he doesn't walk a lot of batters. I know the Blue Jays hit a lot of home runs, but yeah, I mean, it just feels like you're paying a premium for some of these guys when I'd rather, look to cores or find some cheaper bats.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Pineda, a guy that has actually pitched pretty well against the Blue Jays. I just don't like taking pictures in this park. But in a tournament, if you want to take a shot on him, go for it.
No. I'm not saying Pineda, no.
No, I'm saying though, like he has pitched good against the Blue Jays, so it's interesting. But like Donaldson's 0 for 10 against him, so it's something that you just want to think about. Cleveland at Tampa. You want to talk about strikeout upside? Carlos Carrasco against Drew Smyly in this game. Carrasco, a guy with some elite strikeout numbers.
Yeah, both of these guys at the top of my list in terms of pitching targets. Carrasco, 29.4% strikeout rate since the start of last season. Doesn't walk a lot of guys. Doesn't give a very hard contact. And he has an elite ground ball rate. So it's hard to find a reason not to play him other than the fact that he's not a big favorite.
Yeah, I like both these guys. I see a lot of strikeouts in this game. Not, offenses that we're really scared of. Brantley brings so much to that lineup. But if we had to target some Cleveland bats in a tournament, because I don't think either one of us want cash game plays on such a massive slate here, looking at either one of these teams.
Yeah, you can look to Mike Napoli in the tournament or Francisco Lindor. He hit a home run on Tuesday night. Both of them have good power numbers against righties or against lefties. Sorry, but yeah, I actually like Smyly quite a bit. I think he's very interesting at 8,700.
All right, yeah, I definitely agree with you. And then Carrasco, is there anybody you want to target here against him? Maybe Dickerson in a tournament?
Yeah, I mean, Dickerson's been on fire since the start of the season. And it's nice to see, sometimes when guys leave Colorado, they sometimes struggle a little bit. But, it's nice to see him playing well. I'm probably not looking at any of these bats, but definitely a guy to keep your eye on moving forward.
Yeah, if I had to take, 2 or 3 bats in this game overall, like you mentioned, Napoli, Lindor, Dickerson, they present upside. That's the only guys I would target in a tournament and tournament only. Baltimore at Boston. We get to talk about my Red Sox. That's the one good thing. I get to talk about my Red Sox almost every day. So that's one positive thing out of this podcast. And, I'm talking to all my friends that I don't get to chat with every day. But Ubaldo Jimenez against Joe Kelly. I know you're just so scared of both of these pitchers.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of either of these guys, especially since the game's in Fenway. I expect a lot of runs to be scored between these two teams.
Yeah, I agree with you. Ubaldo just had a really good game in that first game of the season. Was targeted a lot. 9 strikeouts in 7 innings against Minnesota. Picked up the win in that game. Minnesota offense is not the Red Sox offense. I want nothing to do with him tonight.
Yeah, I agree. Jimenez is always a guy that I'm going to cheer for whatever reason. He just doesn't have a great command, and he tends to walk a lot of batters, which could cause some problems against the Red Sox, who are very patient at the plate. They have the 3rd lowest strikeout rate against right-handed pitching. Yeah,
Joe Kelly, definitely not a guy I'm going to be targeting in this game, and I think we can target quite a bit of bats, so let's get into it here. Visiting Baltimore Orioles, who's your top bats here?
So yeah, I mean, Joe Kelly's a guy with reverse splits. What are your thoughts on that? And I mean, I've heard a lot of talk this season about reverse splits don't carry any predictive value. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that people look at him and some people don't, and some people believe him and some people don't. I tend to believe in him. If the numbers are saying that the guy is struggling against righties, there's a reason. So, you know, being a guy that pitched, I was really good against righties. I had a fastball that broke back at I had natural movement back at right-handed bats, and I had a curveball that I could start in the middle of the plate and it would hit the ground on the outside of the plate. So I was really good against righties. The problem with that is, scouting reports came out and my fastball actually was worse against lefties because of the movement. So I struggled against lefties. So sometimes it's the complete opposite of that. Sometimes right-handed pitchers have movement to, favor right-handed bats. So I think reverse splits are real. I think it's been shown throughout baseball that, every stat means something.
Yeah, I've always factored him in, and so yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see what these stat guys come up with, but it's something I always look at. So I was just curious to hear your thoughts.
So looking at Baltimore here, instantly gets stuck on Manny Machado in this matchup against Joe Kelly.
Yeah, I love Machado. I like Ricard. Is it Ricard? You
Yeah.
gotta correct me on these. All right.
No, you're good, man. You're good.
So yeah, he's bat. If he bats lead off, I mean, I love his price at 2,600. He's got a strong offense behind him. He could end up getting, one of those multi-hit, multi-run type of games. Chris Davis, always on my radar whenever he's facing a righty. And then Trumbo. Trumbo's had a big game on Tuesday night. Really, any of these guys. I like Wieters. I like Pedro Alvarez. And J.J. Hardy had a couple home runs last night as well.
Yeah, had quite a bit of Baltimore stacks. Didn't have any Hardy. It was so frustrating to watch him hit that second home run. Like the first one was okay. I had a little bit of Lindor, and then it was like, all right, I'm way behind at shortstop now. But it is what it is. So one guy that really stands out to me is a guy that hits right-handed pitching very well, and Joe Kelly with his reverse splits, 35% hard contact rate to righties last season is Jonathan Scope, 2,700. I always like to target him against right-handed pitching.
Yep, I agree with you there. I'd probably only use him, in one of these Orioles stacks since he's batting so low. Probably won't look at him in cash games, but great tournament play.
Now, looking at the Red Sox side of things, David Ortiz, another home run on Tuesday night, which actually gave me the lead on Jeff Collins in our home run derby thing that we're doing, and that me and you will do towards the end here. You got to like Poppy here at 3,900.
Yeah, definitely got to like him. The Red Sox have the highest team total outside of Coors Field. So if you're looking for, a stack that's going to be lower owned than the Giants or Rockies, I think you can immediately go to the Red Sox. They're in a great spot, and their ownership's going to be down just because there's game in Coors. I love Ortiz. I love Mookie Betts batting leadoff, and really any of these guys as well. Really high on this game for both offenses.
Pedroia looks like he's starting to string, a bounce back year together here in the 2 spot, getting on base, hitting the baseball. I would love to see Dustin Pedroia have a bounce back year. Is it bias, or does he actually look like he's going to have a good year here?
No, yeah, he's definitely looked good this year. And, even his numbers against righties have been pretty good. So I definitely like him in the 2-hole. And then what are your thoughts on Hanley Ramirez? Is he going to bounce back as well?
Yeah, he looks good at the plate, man. Everything he's hitting, he's squaring up. He's had a couple lazy at-bats, which, I think that's just Hanley Ramirez. But for the most part, from what I've watched, he looks like he's hitting the ball hard, and it's hard to argue with what he's been able to do here starting the season, multi-hits, and I think 4 of the first 6 games.
Yeah, sounds right.
So let's swing it on over Cincinnati at Chicago Cubs. You think the Cubs win the World Series this year?
I don't know. I mean, it's just it's a long curse to break.
It is definitely a long curse. Red Sox were able to do it, but let's see what the Cubs end up doing here. John Lackey against Alfredo Simon. What's your thoughts here on these pitchers?
Yeah, so Lackey, I believe, is the biggest favorite on the board, which I always like for cash games. He should be able to pick up a win. He's going to get a lot of run support behind him, and he's only $8,500 on FanDuel. The win is important for a pitcher, so I think you can definitely look to him, and that's going to help you afford some of the more expensive bats, especially if you want to stack the Coors game.
Yep, and one thing you always got to check with the Chicago Cubs when they're at home. Make sure you're paying attention to the wind. We were recording this podcast the night before, but it looks like the wind's going to be okay in this game to target pitching. So, yeah, I don't mind Lackey. Not really scared too much about the Reds' offense in general. Lackey's not typically a guy that I use a lot, but on a site like FanDuel where, the wind is so important, I think that Lackey's in a good spot to pick up a win here. Now, looking at the visiting bats, is there anybody that you would target here against Lackey?
Yeah, so he does struggle a little bit against lefties, giving up a 335 WOBA with 12 home runs allowed over the last season. So I think you look at Votto, I think you look at Jay Bruce, but those are really the only two guys I'm looking at.
Those are the two guys that I have written down here. I want to note that Suarez is off to a scorching start, but typically much better against left-handed pitching. If he's in the 2 spot, his price tag has come up at 3,700. I think he's a really interesting fade here.
Yeah, I agree. And then one other note, I believe Zach Kozar got hurt the other night. So Billy Hamilton could be batting leadoff, which could make him an interesting play as well.
Yep, you're just looking for stolen bases, even though he hit a home run the other night. That's not going to happen very often. So, Hamilton, the homer off Lester, we were expecting a couple stolen bases, and he actually hit a home run. So it's always an interesting thing. What stands out to you here for the Cubs bats outside of everybody?
Yeah, pretty much everyone. I mean, Alfredo Simon. Is it Simon? I'm just going to get all the names
That's
wrong.
how they say it on the Detroit thing last year, so that's what I'm going with.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, he very low strikeout rate. Struggles against hitters from both sides of the plate, but especially against lefties. 368 WOBA, 16 home runs allowed since the start of last year. So, I love Zobrist, Hayward, Rizzo, and then I always got to like Chris Bryant as well.
All right, I'm calling it notorious. Jason Hayward's first home run of the season comes here in this game against Simone.
I like it.
All right, Chicago White Sox at Minnesota. Phil Hughes, probably one of the biggest gas cans in baseball against Carlos Rendon. Probably one of the highest prospects for strikeouts in baseball, but still working on his control issues. I'll let you touch more on that.
Yeah, so since the beginning of last year, 22.8% strikeout rate, which is something we like to see, but his walk rate, 11.3%, definitely needs to work on that moving forward. He's got a lot of upside, but he also giving up way too many free passes.
Yeah, but looking at this matchup, we love to target Minnesota bats against left-handed pitching, and he struggled pretty heavily with right-handed bats. Anything stand out to you here on the Minnesota side?
Yeah, I definitely think Miguel Sano is interesting. Brian Dozier, Trevor Plouffe, and I like all these guys.
Yeah, I don't mind Park as well. Some upside at that $2,600 price tag at first base. Don't know if we're necessarily going to need to have some value here. It's so early in the morning or at night whenever you're listening to this that we haven't started building lineups, so we don't know how roster construction is going to go. But I just want to point out Park at 2,600, good value play. Now looking at Phil Hughes, massive numbers, reverse splits last year. Like I said, I definitely believe in reverse splits. What are your thoughts here on the White Sox bats?
Yeah, so it looks like the Twins are pretty big favorites in this one, which could keep the ownership low on the White Sox bats, which is good news for us, especially if you're playing tournaments. Hughes is a guy that gives up a ton of home runs, which is great news for Jose Abreu and Todd Frazier.
Yep, love Abreu in this game. I think he's an excellent option. He has a couple hits against Hughes in limited at-bats, but it's one of those things where the home runs are going to come. And I think that this is a good spot for Abreu to have a massive game. And like you said, Todd Frazier definitely in play. I'm a sucker for Adam Eaton. I play him a ton. I love him at the top of the order there.
Yeah, I do too. And they're not massive favorites. It looks like this game's a pick 'em. So both offenses in pretty good spots. But Adam Eaton always at the top of the order. Gives you a nice little combination of speed and power.
Kansas City at Houston, Yolardo Ventura against Scott Feldman in this game. I love targeting Kansas City pitchers because of their bullpen, but I'm going to honestly have a tough time picking my spots against this Houston offense this year. What's your thoughts on these pitchers?
Yeah, so last year, the Astros were more of a boomer bust matchup. They struck out a ton, but they hit a lot of home runs as well. And this year, it just looks like they're just going to be tough every night. So I'm not a big fan of Ventura in this one. He has pretty decent numbers, but walks a little too many batters for me. And then Feldman, he's just not a guy that I'm ever going to use. 14% strikeout rate just isn't going to get it done in DFS.
Yeah, Ventura walked 6 batters in that first game in Minnesota. If he walks 6 batters here, he's going to be in a lord of trouble because guys like Correa, Altuve, Rasmus, Springer, you get these guys on base, and Houston's been aggressive on the base path, so they'll start trying to run on him. And for that reason, those 4 guys that I mentioned, I like those guys tonight.
Yeah, I do too. And this is an interesting stack for me just because everyone's going to be on the game in Coors Field. So nobody's going to be on any of the Astros hitters. They seem a little bit expensive on FanDuel, but that's just going to lower their ownership and make them even better tournament plays.
Yeah, one thing you want to note, you're hoping that Houston gets out to a lead and you're not facing the bulk of the Kansas City bullpen late in the game. So, stacking Houston's always risky, but I agree with you here. I think they'll be low owned. What's your thoughts on the Kansas City bats here in a decent matchup with Scott Feldman?
Yeah, I definitely like some hitters here. Feldman's another guy with reverse splits, but I think I'm going to give the edge to the lefties in this lineup. I like Moustakas and Hosmer quite a bit.
Yeah, I think an interesting catcher option is Salvador Perez if he's in the lineup. Correct me if I'm wrong. He actually hits right-handed pitching better than he hits left-handed pitching. So, his reverse splits, 3K, probably going to go overlooked.
Yeah, I agree. Double reverse splits in his favor tonight.
Like that. I'll always like that. Milwaukee at St. Louis. Mike, the home run leak against Chase, I pitched good in my first start. Anderson, what's your thoughts here on these 2 guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good ballpark for pitching, but unfortunately we don't have very good pitchers in this one. I'm interested to see what Leak will be able to do in a Cardinals uniform. They're a team that always gets the best out of their starting rotation. So I'm expecting kind of a decent year from him. But only time will tell.
Yeah, this is actually a really good matchup for him. Brewers are not a team that we're going to be too scared of this season. What's your thoughts on Chase Anderson? Is he a guy that you're going to target here in this game?
No, not really looking at Anderson. Neither of these guys have great strikeout potential. But if I'm going to give the edge to anyone, it's going to be Leak. They're pretty sizable favorites here. And, I think he's going to get some run support.
Yeah, St. Louis, one of the best places to play as far as pitchers go for home teams. What's your thought on some of these visiting Milwaukee bats? We mentioned that Leak, not one of the best pitchers, but do you like guys like Scooter, maybe Braun?
Yeah, he does give up a lot of home runs. That's his biggest weakness. So I think you can look at Ryan Braun. Scooter's interesting. And maybe Luke Croy batting cleanup. He's pretty cheap.
Yeah, I love mixing up my catchers. I don't ever go heavy on any catcher, except for the other day when James McCann got hurt in the 3rd inning or something. I had a lot of him, but it's like basketball over again. But yeah, now looking at the St. Louis side, one guy name that just, nobody knew this guy coming in the season unless you're like probably a St. Louis fan, but Hazelbaker, man, 2,300, batting in the 2 spot, 5 straight games with at least 18 fantasy points here.
Yep. If I'm starting my lineup, I think I'm going to start it with him.
Yeah, I think it's a really fair point. Just continues to be in that spot that you want him to be in the 2 spot, lefty-righty advantage here, and just continues to hit, and not even just hit, he's stealing bases as well.
Yep, and another guy you got to look at, Matt Carpenter. Just one of the safest plays on the board. He always seems to give you some kind of production, whether it's just a single or whatever it may be. But he's also good, giving some nice power so far this season, and a nice lefty-righty matchup here.
Yeah, if people are following the podcast, I talk about Matt Carpenter probably every day. And so since you did it, I don't have to do it. All right. Well, we're going to head on over to the dreaded Coors field game here. Jake Peavy, Jordan Lyles, 2 dominant aces facing off in Coors here in this game. I know you want both of these pitchers in your lineup, right?
Yeah, no, I wish Fando had two pitcher spots. So it's going to be a tough choice deciding between these two.
All right, well, let's not play opposite day. We want everything to do with the hitters in this game. We want nothing to do with PV or Lyles, right?
Yeah, so I mean the over under is set at 12, which I've been playing daily fantasy baseball for quite some time. I don't remember a total being that high before.
Yeah, 11 and a half. I think we've seen some 12s last year, but it's not a common thing. So instantly, one of the most popular things on the day is going to be stack this game. And why I'm not saying that's not a bad idea, it's probably going to be highly owned. So I think you pick your spots. But if you're playing one tournament lineup, don't know if I would stack this game. You're playing multiple tournament lineups. You definitely want the hitters in this game. Let's start it off with the visiting team, the Giants here. What are your thoughts on the Giants bets?
Yeah, so hitters from both sides of the plate are going to be in play. Hopefully, Buster Posey will be back in the lineup. He was done with a foot injury, but it sounds like they think he's going to be able to play today. They said he was available off the bench on Tuesday, so hopefully he'll be back in the lineup. If so, I expect him to be the highest owned catcher on the board.
I hate paid up for catching. What's your thoughts on that?
For me, I just go where the value goes. I mean, if there's good value in the outfield, I'm going to go there. If there's good value at second, third, catcher, whatever it may be, I don't like to box myself into a corner. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind paying up for Posey when the spot's right.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Instantly stand out. Brandon Belt spans off to a good start here. You got to look at these guys, in my opinion. And what's I mean, I just right before we got on the air, he hit a home run. I think it's like Brown or something.
Trevor Brown.
Yeah, but it looks like they didn't put him in the player pool yet. So that kind of stinks. But yeah, he hit a home run in that game on Thursday, but not in the player pool, so we don't have to touch on him. Pretty much anything you want to do with the bats from San Francisco here.
Yeah, Panic, Pence, Span, Belt, Crawford, all of these guys, great cash game targets. They're going to be heavily owned in terms of a stack in tournaments. But yeah, load up on these guys in cash games.
Now looking at the Colorado side of things, I think the same thing goes here for the Colorado bats. PV not a guy that is going to overpower anybody, so definitely a guy that I'm going to be targeting quite a bit here. Arenado, 5K, instantly the first guy that stands out to me.
Yeah, I gotta like him. He's expensive, so you're gonna have to, work to get him into your lineup. And pretty much all these guys are expensive. I think Parra is probably the best value at 3,400. And then, Trevor Story, is he gonna hit 2,000 home runs this season?
Yeah, he's definitely gonna hit at least 1,000, right?
It's crazy.
What's crazy is I love that kid the whole first part of the last week, and then like everybody jumped on him, and I like jumped off, and he continued to hit home runs. It was like, all right, you're killing me now. Like you helped me out, you made me some money, now you're killing me. But yeah, kid is one of those guys we're definitely going to be talking about all season. I think he has good stuff at the plate.
Well, you didn't think he could hit a home run every game the rest of the season?
The odds are not in his favor, as the movie would say. But yeah, we don't have to spend a lot of time in this game. If you can fit bats in this game, fit them in, right?
Yeah. Yeah, all these guys are good spots. Yeah, not a whole lot to say.
Arizona at Los Angeles facing the Dodgers here. Alex Wood, the lefty, facing off against Arizona. Ruby De La Rosa facing off against the Dodgers. Either one of these pitchers you like here?
Yeah, I'm interested in Alex Wood a little bit. Doesn't have the highest strikeout rate. But he likes to attack hitters. We can see him pitch pretty deep into games just because he throws a lot of strikes. And he has a pretty high ground ball rate. So I don't think he's the worst target. He's pretty cheap at $7,200, and he's a pretty decent favorite at minus 140.
Yeah, he's a guy that I have written down as a tournament option. I like him because I like pitchers that are going to be pitching with leads, and one of my favorite stacks on the day today is the Dodgers. I'm going to be picking on Ruby De La Rosa a lot. He gets hit hard by left-handed bats, and the Dodgers can throw quite a bit of lefties against him in this game. So I like the Dodgers bats. I'll let you start it off, though. Who do you like here for the Dodgers?
Yeah, all the lefties in play for me. Adrian Gonzalez, Corey Seager, Jock Peterson, Chase Utley, all in great spots. I think you can stack them. I think you can use them in cash games. basically everyone that hits from the left side of the plate is gonna be in a good spot.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to note here, Yasmani Grandal might go overlooked, but he was activated from the DL on Tuesday. Should be back in the lineup, probably in the 6 or 7 spot, 2,500, and he gets to start it off here with a good matchup against Ruby De La Rosa. So I think he's a really good play here.
Yeah, I like that. I didn't know he's activated, so good thing I'm doing the podcast.
Yeah, I got your back, bro. Don't worry. Arizona bats, instantly we stand out with Goldschmidt against the lefty, but price tag 5K. I think that's a little steep here for Goldschmidt.
Yeah, for cash games, I wouldn't look at him. I think you can throw him in a tournament lineup. I mean, he has double home run type of upside every time he faces a lefty. 458 WOBA against Southpaws and a 266 ISO. So I think you can look at him in tournaments, but a little expensive for cash for me.
Yeah, always a tournament option. He always has potential to have big games. Two other names that stand out to me, Gene Segura and Yosmani Tomas. What are your thoughts on those two guys?
Yeah, I don't mind either guy. You know, Segura's been hot to start the season, and I've been on him a little bit, which has been nice. So I don't mind him batting leadoff. His price has come up to 3,500 though. I kind of liked him when he was 2,500 or so.
Yeah, I wouldn't go too crazy here because, like you said, Wood's a guy that definitely has the high ground ball rate, so don't expect a lot of home runs here. Willington Castillo is always a guy that's interesting at catcher if he's batting in the 5 spot.
Yeah, I agree. Good power against righties, and yeah, he should could be an interesting tournament play for sure.
All right, that pretty much sums it up here for the entire massive slate, morning slate and late slate. Notorious, I don't know if you know this or not, but we have this new thing on the morning grind that we do a stake-style draft, kind of home run derby, and I'm going to track it and see how we do against each other throughout the year. Since you're going to be a guy that's joining me throughout the year, I'm going to let you play this game with us, my friend.
All right, let's do it.
So seeing that you're my guest, I'll let you have first pick. You can pick from the morning slate or the late slate. I will let you know that I'm up 1-0 on Hoop, and I'm up 1-0 on my boy Jeff Collins. So you got a lot to live up here.
All right, let's see. I will go with Brandon Belt.
Brandon Belt going Coors. You and Jeff Collins must be brothers, but I'm sticking to my guy here, and for the 3rd straight day in a row since starting this, I'm going David Ortiz. I like my dude Poppy. Not a homer pick at all. So, you know, he's a guy that I definitely like here in this matchup. Massive upside, and then I'm going to go a little less chalky, I guess, and I'm going to go with my boy Jose Abreu.
Yeah, I like that. He was giving up a lot of home runs. I think that's a good pick.
So
how many each would we get?
You're getting your last 2 picks here.
All right. So I'll stay with the chalk. I'll go Carlos Gonzalez, sticking in Coors Field. I think he's in a good spot against Jake Peavy. We know what he can do against right-handed pitching. And then a little bit off the board, I'll go Kendrys Morales against Scott Feldman in Minute Maid Park.
I like it. I like it a lot. I don't know how much off the board my last one is, but I'm going with my boy Jock Peterson. Sticking to your thoughts here on the Los Angeles Dodgers game. I love the lefty bats here. And he's going to be my late game hammer that I'm going to catch up to you because I think you're going to get some home runs out of Coors. And Jock Peterson, I'll lock him in for my last pick. All right, now one of the new thing that we got going on here that the listeners absolutely love, according to Twitter and them tweeting me, but now this segment is we give out a pitcher that we think is in the best spot to win. It doesn't mean that he's going to score a lot of fantasy points, but it's a guy that you think is going to, at the end of the day, pick up a win. So who, if you had to pick one guy that's going to pick up a win on the slate, who would it be?
All right, so I can't go with Strasburg just because he's burned me so many times. He's going to lose by 10 at least. So I'll go John Lackey. I think the Cubs are going to score a bunch of runs in this game. Going up against Alfredo Simon or Simon, however you pronounce it. He's a huge favorite. Yeah. He's a huge favorite, and he's pretty cheap, so I think he can pick up a win.
Yeah, I like that. I guess mine's a little chalkier, but I'm going Carlos Carrasco. I think they pick up the win against Tampa, and I think he cruises to a pretty good game here against Tampa in a very friendly pitcher's ballpark. Notorious, it's always good to work with you, my friend. It's always fun to do podcasts and talk to you because one of the best minds in baseball, basketball, fantasy in general. And, you're pretty good at golf, too. You want to tell people where they can find you at here on Roto-Grinders?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much all over the homepage with the grind downs. A lot of fun doing those. So make sure to read those. Got some incentives content as well. And then check out the NBA, MLB, and PGA first looks too.
Yeah, first look, you're getting the morning grind. And as you're listening to the morning grind, look over the first look that Notorious does every day. It's a great starting spot. Gives you pretty much everything you need to start your research basis. Notorious, thank you again for joining. Guys, I'll be back here tomorrow with a special guest. So you guys are definitely going to want to make sure you're paying, coming in for that. It's going to be a guy that you may know, you may not know, but I'm going to tell you one thing. He's a guy that's known across the industry as a guy that we might have played on our tournament rosters. So you're going to want to tune in tomorrow and see who we got on the podcast. And Notorious, thanks for joining us. I'm Stevie TPFL, and I will see you guys tomorrow.